Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pazza Podcast. I'm Travis. We are back immediately after, following the 2-1 victory for Inter versus Fiorentina. It's been a while, I guess probably about 8 days now since I've come on with a reaction. What's happened in that time has been Inter had one of the worst matches in the most recent history, I guess we could say. The announcer said it was the first 3-0 defeat for Inter since 2019. So 6 years we're going on without being humiliated that bad. Against Fiorentina midweek in Florence. We're not going to mention much about that game. I mean, it was unlucky from the beginning. Carlos Augusto had a goal disallowed, and then it just got worse from there, all the way to DeMarco at the end with that absolutely atrocious mistake. Yeah, it was everything went against us, and everything went Fiorentina's way. But that was not the case today, and what we were looking for today was a response. A lot of players did not show well in that match against Fiorentina on Thursday. And we needed a response from not only the boys, but I think Inzaghi. I think Inzaghi maybe two matches in a row had been outclassed against Milan, two big matches against Milan. Conceição kind of had his number there with the tactics. And Palladino came out and did the exact same thing, set really deep and was like, hey, you beat me uh, from crosses. And we couldn't do that. Ranieri and Pongracic, however you pronounce it, were huge in that match. And yeah, it was pretty much cross, 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 cross. I think if we were still in Florence, we'd still be crossing and they would be dealing with it. It was just not a good game for Inter, but that was a different day. And the boys responded today, and so did Inzaghi. So we'll dive into the game. We started pretty strong lineup. Sommer in goal, Pavard, Acerbi, Bastoni, back line. Great to see Acerbi back. Darmian in for the suspended Dumfries. We had Barella, Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan, Carlos Augusto, and then Thuram and Lautaro up top. First half started. Lautaro looked really, really hungry starting out. I mean, we had a play in the first minute. Lautaro crossed from Darmian, and Lautaro first time just wide. It was a brilliant. It's Lautaro's kind of, what would you say? Maybe his speciality. First time snapshot. Catch the goalkeeper on their heels. I think De Gea would have gotten it if it was more on target, but Lautaro was showing he was hungry and alive, and it kept that way the whole game. I wrote that Fiorentina was playing in that low block that they'd played last match out, hitting on the counter, similarly to what Conceição set Milan up to. So 3-5-2 in defense, kind of a 5-3-2. Beltran for them seemed to be kind of pressing high, marking Çalhanoğlu. If you saw in the first half, Çalhanoğlu, I think he had a way better game, a pretty damn good game. I don't know why he was yanked at half. Hopefully it wasn't an injury. But he seemed to um, play really well. Sorry, I thought I was having some mic issues there. And I thought he kind of played a little higher at some points, which forced Beltran maybe not to track back as much, and it really influenced the match a lot. Um, Fourth minute again, after that first minute chance, Lautaro had another chance. But it seemed early on that we were just going to be doing the crosses. I wrote 5 or 6 crosses in the first 6 minutes, and I was hoping that that wasn't the tactics that continued. Like I said, Thursday it seemed like we tried every cross, anytime down the pitch, we were forcing it out wide and trying the crosses, and their center backs were absolutely colossal in the air there. But one thing that was different, like I'd mentioned, Çalhanoğlu, he had a strike in the 8th minute that was about 30, 35 yards out, and De Gea covered it. It was straight at De Gea. I think it bounced right in front of him, but that was something we didn't see that Thursday match. Something coming from the center of the field versus outside, and giving Fiorentina something to worry about differently than just a cross. So I think that was a really big impact. Maybe something Inzaghi had kind of beat into them over the past few matches, that we need to do stuff creatively through the middle, and that was a great sign from Çalhanoğlu. Bastoni looked a little off early though. I wouldn't say he really found it much the rest of the game. His crossing was off, which is something we've seen the past couple games, I feel like. Maybe he just needs a rest. Maybe he's tired. But he wasn't on it early. He played better as the game went on, but I still wouldn't say he was one of our better players on the pitch. But Hakan looked good in the first half. I'd already mentioned him a couple of times, but defensively, he was doing some great work and getting stuck into tackles. And I think if we can get him back, it's something we definitely need. Something I wanted to see you guys, if you want to comment, let me know. I'd mentioned this in a group message I'm with some other Inter fans. Um, for the longest time, I'd said, it's hard for Aslani to make an impact, Christian Aslani, because Hakan Çalhanoğlu, is world class, which he is, in my opinion, still is, regardless of his recent form coming back from injury. But the drop off from Hakan to Aslani is big, and it's going to be big when you're coming in for a player of Hakan's uh, caliber. But one thing that I feel like was most apparent today was the drop off we've seen in the last few months from Barella playing to Fratesi. I think Barella in this match, he was my man of the match. We'll talk on this a little later, but he was everywhere, and it was very apparent early on that he was going to be very impactful in this match, and he was very hungry. We had the bicycle kick that it was in the 13th to 14th minute. Carlos Augusto cross, and it was with his left foot. The technique was absolutely brilliant. If that would have gone in, add it to the list of Barella goals that just make you drool. Um, he's a superb player, but let me know what you guys think. Who do you think's a bigger drop off? I guess Fratesi coming in for Barella or Aslani coming in for Çalhanoğlu. Um, but then we had a couple off the post. Uh, Carlos Augusto volleyed off the post from a corner. It was off of a corner. Bastoni met it front post, went across goal, and Carlos Augusto had a nice volley, but off the post, the near post of his strike, and then Lautaro off another corner, header off the bar. So it seemed like we weren't going to get the breakthrough, but then scandal occurred. The drama that is Serie A occurred. 27th minute, ball down through to a streaking Bastoni. It appeared out. I think everybody saw that it was out except for the officials. And Bastoni latched onto it, got it across, and Fiorentina headed it out for a header. They protested. It was definitely out. I mean, you could see from the replays. But the thing with that is there is no technology like goal line technology. And that's something that, in theory, VAR can't step in. And, well, that can't be right because Fiorentina, the originally scheduled match, unless they had ruled it out on the field, the sideline official from that Dumfries when he lobbed it over in the first match right before Bove collapsed, um, and Lautaro scored. They didn't count that a goal, but maybe the official on the field caught it. I don't think VAR can step in and say, "Hey, the ball was out of bounds." I could be wrong, but nonetheless, it resulted in a corner, and in the ensuing corner, we crossed it in. Lautaro battling hard, kind of whiffed his header. It hits Pongracic, a Fiorentina player, in the chest and goes in the goal. Inter up 1-0. Protests ensued from Fiorentina, rightfully so, in my opinion. But there's nothing they can do. The corner had already been taken. And Inter up 1-0, which probably was, how the game had gone to that point. Inter should have been up 1-0 anyway. Doesn't make up for the fact that it was a bad call. But it wasn't against the run of play. It was like practically justifiable. Not saying it was, but you kind of get my drift. And I think Palladino was rightfully mad. But nonetheless, Inter up 1-0, huge. You could see Lautaro was ramping the crowd up after this. You could see he was leading by example and what it meant to the team this game, this match. So very awesome stuff. Bad news though, within that ensuing play in between, right before the corner was taken, Marko Arnautovic subbed on for Marcus Thuram. Hopefully nothing important, nothing crazy, nothing that keeps him out for a while. Hopefully Thuram is back soon, especially we got a big match coming up against Juve. But nonetheless, 1-0. Apparently there was a little sideline scuffle after this during the match. You could hear the announcers like, what's going on the sideline? The fans were cheering. Ended up resulting in Palladino and Simone Inzaghi getting both yellow carded. Didn't really see much after that about it, but something interesting of note. And then yeah, another scandal, in my opinion. Maybe not scandal, but big moment occurs shortly after in the 40th minute. Fiorentina, the one time they get down the pitch, they lop in a cross. It hits off of, I don't remember who was the one that headed it. Trying to remember now. Don't remember. Heads it downward. I think it was Gosens maybe downwards. Darmian. It looked like his arm was out, and he's pulling it back in, but it comes off his arm. Referee doesn't call a penalty initially, which I think, you know, this is, you let VAR stand in if you're unsure. Replays are showing this, what I said. Header is just above Darmian, heading it down. Darmian, from what it appears to me, is moving his arm back. Now, letter of the law, they end up bringing the official over to look. He awards a spot kick. Letter of the law, it seems in Italy, is something like that. If your arm is not pretty much tucked behind your back, it's a penalty. And so I guess in that sense, it's a right call. But it's such a harsh one, with how close Gosens is to Darmian at that point, and the appearance. I could be wrong, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. The appearance of Darmian trying to bring his arm back, from what it looks like to me, it's not a clear and obvious, which is that terminology I've mentioned a couple of times that I hate. If it's a foul, it's a foul. Why does it have to be clearly and obvious from what you call in the field? I don't know. It's a weird terminology in my opinion. So as far as that, I don't know if it's clear and obvious that it is a penalty versus not what you called on the field. But like I said, we've seen it in Serie A called again, time and time again. So at that standard, I guess it is. Mandragora steps up and converts the penalty as a well taken penalty. But it's one of those that, if it goes against your team like it is, and I'm looking through this with black and blue glasses, so I'm obviously biased. But I am an official. I've been an official for 17 years. It's just tough. It's a tough penalty to give up. Darmian had no idea about it. It doesn't look like he's making the move towards the ball. It's not hand to ball, it's ball to hand. I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't know. It was very hard done, and it just felt like, damn, here's another Inter piss away game that we've seen so many times this season. But that's pretty much how the first half ended. There was a couple more scuffles kind of on the pitch between the players, and I think the ref really lost the match at that point. He kind of brought it back in the second half, but the first half he was all over the place. But that was the first half. I thought Inter was the better team. We should have been up 2 or 3 to 1, I guess, or 2 or 3 to nothing, depending on how you view the penalty situation. I thought Çalhanoğlu looked great, finally coming back from that injury. Barella looked fantastic. Lautaro was hungry. He didn't get credited with the goal, but he was in there. He was everywhere on the pitch. Really, a captain's performance, il capitano. Carlos Augusto was another one that looked great in the first half. And I just think it was a good half. Not 1-1 good half. It shouldn't have been 1-1, but sometimes that's how football goes. And what would we do to respond in the second half? And we'll talk about that in a second. One thing I want to mention about that refereeing, going back to that kind of VAR decision, mentioned a couple of times on the podcast that I'm a referee. I've been a referee for 17 years. Something that I have a little story that I like to always talk about with younger referees whenever I'm reffing with them. um, Referee, my first foray into refereeing, I was taking the class. And if you know anything about rural North Carolina in my time growing up, soccer is not really a sport that anybody was playing. It was football and specifically basketball, more importantly, in rural North Carolina. So to be a soccer player, fan, and going into refereeing, it's hard to find people in your community to respect their knowledge of the game and everything. But the guy who led the refereeing course was a referee by the name of Dan Adams, and he's probably still doing it in North Carolina. He's been a referee for 40 plus years. But we went through all the laws of the game. And if you're familiar with refereeing and the laws of the game, there's 17 laws of the game, anywhere from, what's a yellow card, what's a corner kick, the dimensions in the field of play. And we went through each one of them. I think it was over 3 days. And it's like an 8-hour course each day. And before the end of it, you have to take the certification and you have to get a 75. And it's all stuff from the book. They throw some bullshit that tries to trip you up, some trick questions and stuff.
And what he told us before we took the test, we had everybody in there. He'd passed out all the laws of the game books. The beginning of class, that's what we went through, and he said he pointed at somebody I don't remember, and he said, "Now I want you to go to the very back of the book and read to the class what Law 18 is." And that person opened the book, looked at it, and he was like, "Dan, there isn't a Law 18." And Dan stood there for a second in silence and pointed to somebody else. So you turn the back book. Maybe it's a misprint. Show me what Law 18 is. And the person said, "I don't see Law 18." And Dan said, "Okay, the most important law for a referee to know is Law 18." And they don't put it in the book because it's common sense. You have to have common sense. We lose sight of this as referees, even as fans. And he said, sometimes the game, you don't go by what you're seeing, maybe not what you're seeing, but you go by what makes sense. And something like that handball, like I said, the referee, he didn't call it on the field. He came over to the monitor, and like I said, for me, Darmian's moving his arm back. It's so close. If Darmian would have headed it and hit his arm, they would have said it's not a penalty. Gosens is right there, just a little bit above him, heads it down, like he doesn't have time to react. We've seen it given in Serie A, so I'm not gonna. This is the last thing I'm gonna say about it. But I think if you're gonna apply common sense, which, like I said, that's the best bit of advice as a referee I've ever been given, and it was on my first day, and I'll never forgotten that. Common sense has to be applied, and I feel like here it wasn't really applied, in my opinion. That's kind of the end of my ramble on refereeing for this match. Did think he lost control of the match in the first half, but second half, I think he maybe pulled it in again. And then last thing I said, first half thoughts is we've had two chances off the post. What changes is Inzaghi going to make to impact the match? And he did. At halftime, he brought on Zelinski for Hakan. I thought it was going to be for Mkhitaryan because of the yellow card that he picked up, but it was for Hakan. And yeah, second half goes, and Lautaro again, two early chances. It was huge. And it showed. Inzaghi had these guys outside of half. A lot of times, if you give up a goal before halftime, you're dead. You're done. The momentum switches completely. Inzaghi got these guys back. They were ready. They were going, and Lautaro was leading the ship. And then in the 52nd minute, everybody's favorite, Arnautovic. If you've watched the podcast the last few months, you've known I've been saying Arnautovic has to be the one to come on, not Taremi. I think Arnautovic has that bit of quality, creativity, something different. He's big. He can battle. Um, and I've been saying in the group message for the past couple weeks, like Arnautovic, Arnautovic, Arnautovic. It's kind of become a joke. We call him Lord Arna in our group message. But for me, I really enjoy the way he plays, and I think he's very impactful on the game. He misses big chances, which is something he needs to tighten up. But I think he can make a difference and bring something differently, especially considering that last game against Fiorentina. We were missing, I mean, Pongracic and Ranieri, Dodo, um, Gosens, all these people were winning every ball in the air. And I thought Arnautovic would be able to battle with Pongracic and Ranieri way better than Turam, who didn't look up to it in that last match. And he had some better touches and was involved a little more this match. But I think Arnautovic coming in was a huge change of the game for us. And he repaid our faith with a goal. It was came around. I think it maybe started off a corner and bounced around again. Bastoni slipped in Carlos Agosto, who with his right foot, first time, it pretty much was a tap in header for Arnautovic, and we're up 2-1. And hats off. You could see what it meant to him. You could see what it meant to the rest of the team. It was huge, and it was great. I texted. I said I felt like a proud dad to my group message because Arnautovic, he deserved it. Deserved that goal, and we kept the attack after that as well. Barella had a free kick, which really came about. Bastoni was driving, and if you watch Arnautovic with a great run through, like a 20-yard sprinting diagonal run that opened up the space for Bastoni to cut in and got fouled at, but led to a Barella chance on a free kick that he just missed just wide. Um, yeah, and everything looked good. We had Lautaro, another header in the 63rd minute off of a corner that went just wide. And it was one of those matches that it was like, man, is this going to be a Forza Inter give up a goal in the last minute kind of a match, and it got really antsy from this point on. Inzaghi ended up making another double substitution. He brought Zalewski in for Bastoni, which moved Augusto back to left center back. And then Davide Fratesi came on for Mkhitaryan, who had that yellow card, which moved Barella to the left center mid. Um, and yeah, at first Zalewski looked a little uncertain and made some bad touches and stuff, but he really grew into the game. I thought another good showing off the bench for him. Zielinski, what an impact off the bench in that second half. He kind of has made the last two appearances where he's played a lot of minutes in that holding Registo role his own. It's looked really good. So shout outs to Zielinski. And but from that, Inter kind of resorted into playing deeper and what we've seen a lot in the Champions League, telling Fiorentina to break us down. And it was a little nervy after the last 15 minutes or so. Especially he brought Taremi on for Arnautovic. So Arnautovic came on in like the 20th minute, 27th minute, came off in like the 78th or 80th minute. I don't think it was an injury or anything. I think simply Taremi is a way better high presser we've seen in the past, especially in the Champions League. He's won the ball back a lot up high in the pitch. I think simply it was just tactical for that reason. Arnautovic ran his socks off, really worked for the team. He probably was exhausted. And Inzaghi really didn't want to take off Lautaro, probably. He was the captain, leading by example throughout the whole match, the whole 90 minutes. So I think Inzaghi, other than Fratesi, who didn't really do anything or show anything from, again, the match today, his subs were spot on. Everybody came in and impacted the match. Um, we had another chance. Zielinski slotted in a great play for Zalewski, the Polish connection. Zalewski drove towards goal, kind of cut to his left and struck one to the back post. I think De Gea got his foot on it. It was a great chance, though. And the signs were there that, hey, we're trying to get a third one to kill off this game. And eventually, Fiorentina did maybe have a couple of crosses in that were a little nervy, but Inter saw out the rest of the match. There was some really good play towards the end, interchanging between the players, especially in the corner down there. And we'd collected all 3 points. It was a huge victory for Inter this match to especially bounce back from that huge disappointment, embarrassment in Florence to come back and beat the same team 2-1 pretty handedly. Um, there were some nervy moments at the end, but there was never really a doubt. It felt like that Inter wasn't going to win this game. But it was a huge response, and I thought Inzaghi, these are my full-time thoughts, Inzaghi and Inter both responded. Inzaghi really showed that these players know his system, and whenever stuff goes bad, it's the players aren't up for it. It seems like sometimes it's not his system. Sometimes we lose sight of that. He's beat the system into it, and I think sometimes it is maybe his fault for not being able to change tactics, but this system is proven, and it's been proven over the last few years. So huge response. We're now 1 point behind Napoli. We have a head-to-head with them, so if we win that match, we're 2 points ahead. We don't need to look forward too much. We do have Juve at the weekend, so we got another massive match. But it seemed like all the brakes were off of the car, and we were going down the highway 200 miles an hour and couldn't stop with how bad that performance was midweek. But what a response. I thought Barella was the man of the match. I mentioned him a lot in my recap. But Acerbi, another striker he's put in his pocket, Moise Kean, didn't have any impact today. And Acerbi, after being off for so long, it looked like didn't miss a beat. So Grande Acerbi, 37 years old today. He looks like he's still one of the best center backs in the world. But Barella was the best player on the pitch. There's no doubt, in my opinion. I thought Lautaro showed why he's the captain today as well. Il Capitano. He was great, immense, even though he didn't get credited for that first goal. It was a vintage Lautaro performance, something that we've missed most of the season, but in the last month or so, he's really given to us. So shout out to Lautaro. And at the subs, Arnautovic came through with a goal, played great. Zielinski maybe even a step above Çalhanoğlu today. I think Çalhanoğlu is finding his form, but Zielinski, oh man, looked so good in that Registo role. I'd like to see him play a little higher especially if teams are going to start hitting us with that low block. I think he can, with his dribbling and passing, break a low block down better than Mkhitaryan. Zalewski started out again like he did against Milan with early bad touches and looking nervy, but he put in a mature performance and has had two really good substitution appearances. And let's bring on Juve. It's time. It's a huge match, huge derby match. I think we're in better form, despite that loss to Fiorentina. But it's a match. Every game's huge, and this is the biggest of the big. It's Juve. We have to win this one to keep track with Napoli. I think Napoli have Lazio, so not going to be an easy match. Lazio just won 5-1 or 5-0 against Verona, so this could be a huge swing this weekend. This was a massive match. We had to have all 3 points, and we did. So who knows, man? Every game, it seems like from here on out, is going to be important. So great victory. Good job, guys. I appreciate all the support. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you want a sticker, Patsa Podcast sticker, let me know. I will send you guys a Patsa Podcast sticker. But appreciate all the support. Great victory today, Inter. And as always, Forza Inter.